She arrived at the small café early in the morning, just as the sunlight filtered through the dusty windows. It was a quiet place, tucked away on a side street, where regulars came for the soft music and strong coffee. She moved with a gentle grace, carrying the tray of pastries to the counter, greeting the few customers with a soft smile. She wasn't flashy, she didn't draw attention, and most people barely noticed her. But there was something calm and soothing in her presence. Her life had always been simple. She lived in a tiny apartment above the bakery next door, cooked her meals quickly, and spent most of her free time reading or listening to music. Music had been her companion since she was a child. She remembered the old piano in her grandmother's house, worn and dusty, yet full of magic. When her fingers touched the keys, the world around her seemed to vanish, leaving only the notes and the emotions they carried. Nobody outside her family knew about her skill. She played in secret, often late at night, when the city was silent, and she could lose herself in the melodies without interruption. At the café, she had a small corner where a piano stood, often unused during the busy hours. Sometimes, when the customers were quiet, she would sit there for a few minutes, letting her fingers wander across the keys, creating soft tunes that mingled with the aroma of coffee and pastries. Some regulars had noticed her playing, but most thought it was just background music. They didn't realize that the woman they saw serving drinks and wiping tables had a depth of talent that could leave experts speechless. On that particular morning, the café was busier than usual. A group of well-dressed people had entered, carrying themselves with the kind of confidence that suggested they were used to being in control. They ordered their drinks and took a corner table near the piano. She noticed them immediately, their chatter and laughter louder than the usual calm hum of the café. There was one man among them who seemed particularly interested in her. He watched her move, his eyes sharp, as if trying to measure her worth. She returned his gaze briefly, then went back to her work, placing cups and plates with careful attention. The man finally stood up and walked toward her. His smile was polite but carried a challenge, something that made her uneasy. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "I hear there's a piano here. I would love to hear someone play. Could you perhaps play a piece for us?" She hesitated, unsure. She had never performed in front of strangers like this, especially people who seemed to expect perfection. I can," she stammered softly, trying to sound casual. She felt her heart beating faster. The others at the table leaned forward, curiosity and amusement in their eyes. The man continued with a hint of mischief. "Not just any piece. Something challenging. Something impressive. Can you handle that?" There was a subtle assumption in his tone that she would fail, that she would stumble over the notes and confirm their doubts about her abilities. It was as if he wanted to see her falter, and part of her instinct told her to refuse, to step back quietly and disappear into the background. But another part, a quiet voice she had always known, urged her to take the chance, to show even just a little what she could do. She nodded slowly, trying to hide her nervousness. She walked to the piano, each step feeling heavier than the last. The café seemed to fade away, and all that remained was the piano in front of her and the eyes watching expectantly. She placed her hands on the keys, feeling the smooth, cold surface under her fingers. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that the music was hers, that it didn't belong to anyone else, and that she had spent countless nights learning to express her emotions through it. As she began, the first notes were soft, almost hesitant, but steady. The piece she had chosen was difficult, filled with twists and jumps that required precision and control. At first, the group watched, their expressions skeptical, some even exchanging glances as if already anticipating a mistake. She could feel their doubt pressing down on her, but she forced herself to focus, to let the music guide her fingers. Slowly, the melody began to take shape. Her fingers moved with confidence, recalling hours of practice she had kept hidden. The notes danced through the café, weaving a story that no words could capture. There was a richness and depth in the music, a warmth that seemed to fill every corner of the room. The regular customers paused, cups halfway to their lips, ears turning toward the piano, captivated by the sudden change in atmosphere. The man who had challenged her leaned forward slightly, his confident expression faltering. Something about the music caught him off guard, the skill and emotion so unexpected that it forced him to reconsider his assumptions. The others at the table were silent now, their laughter and chatter replaced by a focused stillness, as if the piano had cast a spell over the entire room. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the music rather than think about it. Memories of her grandmother's piano filled her mind, the quiet encouragement of her parents when she was a child, the countless nights she had spent practicing in secret. Each note she played carried a piece of her story, and in that moment, it seemed the cafe itself listened, every sound and movement fading into the background. As the piece progressed, her confidence grew. She moved through the challenging sections with ease, fingers dancing over the keys, hitting each note with precision and emotion. The tricky parts that had once seemed impossible in the quiet of her room now felt natural, as if the music itself guided her hands. She noticed the expressions around her changing, the amusement and doubt replaced by admiration and awe. Even the regulars, who had only ever known her as a quiet server, looked at her differently, realizing that there was much more to this woman than they had ever imagined. The final notes approached, and she felt a mixture of relief and satisfaction. She played them with care, letting them linger in the air, as if the room itself needed a moment to breathe after the intensity of the performance. When the last sound faded, silence remained for a heartbeat. Then slowly, the cafe erupted into applause. The man who had challenged her was the first to stand, clapping with genuine respect, a small smile acknowledging that he had underestimated her. The others joined in, some standing as well, cheering and praising the skill and emotion she had displayed. She opened her eyes, looking around the room. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, not just as a quiet waitress or an unnoticed background figure, but as someone with a talent that could move people, touch hearts, and command attention. Her hands still hovered above the keys, slightly trembling, but her smile was calm and proud. She had faced a challenge, a deliberate test, and she had succeeded, not for the approval of others, but because she had trusted in herself and the music she loved. As the applause died down, she returned to her work, carrying the tray with pastries and coffee, but now with a new sense of confidence. Conversations buzzed around her, and she caught snippets of admiration, curiosity, and even surprise from the patrons. She knew that word of this performance would spread, that her hidden talent would no longer remain a secret. And yet, she felt no need to boast. Music was her passion, her refuge, and her gift. Sharing it, even in unexpected moments like this, was enough. The group of wealthy patrons lingered for a while, discussing her performance among themselves. She overheard phrases like incredible skill and hidden genius, and it brought a quiet satisfaction to her heart. They had forced her into a challenge, expecting her to falter, but instead, she had revealed a part of herself that had always been waiting for the right moment to shine. And in doing so, she had changed the way they saw her and perhaps the way they would see talent in general. As the cafe returned to its usual rhythm, she took a moment to sit at the piano again, not for anyone else, but for herself. Her fingers moved across the keys, creating a gentle melody, a reward for her courage and dedication. Outside, the world continued, busy and unaware of the small miracle that had occurred within the cafe walls. But inside, in that quiet corner, music had spoken, and a hidden master had quietly revealed herself, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The days following her unexpected performance were filled with a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. The cafe was buzzing more than usual, and she noticed new faces entering, curious to hear the piano or perhaps catch a glimpse of the young woman who had surprised everyone. Despite the attention, she continued her routine quietly, serving drinks and pastries with the same gentle smile, hiding the whirlwind of thoughts inside her mind. She found it hard to focus at first. Every time she picked up a cup or wiped a table, her mind wandered back to that moment at the piano. The faces in the crowd, the sudden silence, the applause, it all replayed vividly. She wondered how quickly the news of her performance had spread. It was strange, even uncomfortable, to feel recognized in a way she had never experienced before. Recognition had never been something she sought, but now it came unexpectedly, almost demanding her attention. One afternoon, as she prepared coffee behind the counter, the same man who had challenged her before returned. This time, he approached with a softer expression, less of the earlier mischief and more of genuine interest. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, his tone polite. "I just wanted to congratulate you again. That piece you played was remarkable. Truly remarkable." She offered a small nod, unsure how to respond. Compliments still felt strange to her, especially from someone who had initially doubted her abilities. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant, but the sincerity in it was unmistakable. The man smiled and continued, "I've been to many concerts and recitals, and very few performers can create that kind of emotion with their playing. I'd love to see you perform again, perhaps in a more formal setting. It would be an honor to introduce your talent to a wider audience." Her heart skipped a beat. The thought of performing in front of more people in a larger venue was both thrilling and terrifying. She had always played in private, sharing her music only with herself and her small circle of family. The idea of stepping into a bigger world was daunting, yet a part of her felt drawn to the challenge. There was a pull she could not ignore, a curiosity to see what could happen if she allowed herself to step forward. Days passed and she began to practice more deliberately. She returned to the piano each evening, letting the music guide her hands, but now she also considered how she would present herself if asked to perform again. She experimented with new pieces, some equally difficult as the one she had played in the café, others even more challenging. She discovered that her fingers moved more confidently now, and her emotions flowed more freely through the music. Every note carried her feelings, her memories, and her determination. Despite her growing confidence, there were moments of doubt. She worried about expectations, about failing in front of more people, and about losing the magic of playing for herself. Sometimes she would stop, pressing her hands against her face, trying to steady her thoughts. But each time, she remembered the feeling of connection she had experienced when the notes first filled the café, the way the music had touched others without her having to say a word. That memory pushed her forward, reminding her that her music was more than just skill. It was a way to connect, to communicate something beyond language. One evening, a few regular customers lingered after closing, drawn by the soft melodies coming from the piano. They watched silently as she played, their faces showing admiration and a kind of wonder. One elderly man whispered to another, "She could play for hours and never make a mistake. There's something special there." She didn't hear them, but their presence made her feel both nervous and supported. She realized that her music had an effect on others, that it could calm, inspire, and move people in ways she had never considered before. The man from the café returned once more, bringing with him a small notebook and a camera. "I'd like to record a few of your pieces," he said. "Not for publicity, just to capture the beauty of your music. You play with a heart and depth that is rare. If you're comfortable, I think others should experience it too." She hesitated. The idea of her music being recorded felt invasive at first, like a private world being exposed. Yet, another part of her knew that this was an opportunity to share her gift more widely, to show people that talent could exist in unexpected places. After a long pause, she nodded, and he smiled, careful not to pressure her. He set up the equipment quietly, giving her space while she adjusted to the feeling of being observed more formally than ever. As she played, the camera captured the subtle movements of her fingers, the expressions on her face, the rise and fall of her breathing. She allowed herself to be fully present, letting the music flow naturally, unforced. The man watched from the side, amazed at how someone so unassuming could create such an immersive experience. He could see the emotions in each note, the joy, the longing, the quiet strength that had always been a part of her. After the session, she felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. Performing with an audience or a camera was different, more exposing, yet it had also reaffirmed her love for music. She realized that the gift she had hidden for so long was meant to be shared, not for recognition alone, but to touch lives in a way that words could not. Word began to spread beyond the café, quietly at first. Friends of friends, acquaintances who had been present that morning, and even strangers who had heard the recording began asking where they could hear her play again. Invitations came in, simple at first, like local gatherings or small recitals, and she considered them with careful thought. She didn't want to rush or lose the essence of her music, but she also felt a growing curiosity and courage to explore this new path. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she walked to the piano in the café, alone. The room was silent, filled only with the soft glow of lights reflecting off the polished keys. She sat down and let her hands drift over the familiar surface. The first notes came slowly, almost hesitant, but soon they found their rhythm and voice. The melodies she created that night were different from before. They were infused with confidence, with the awareness that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As the music filled the space, she thought about the man who had challenged her initially, the skeptical expressions, the doubts, and the underestimation she had faced. It all seemed distant now, replaced by a quiet determination and joy. She realized that the challenge had been a gift in disguise, a push that had revealed her true potential. What had begun as pressure and expectation had transformed into opportunity and self-discovery. She finished the piece with a flourish, letting the last note linger in the air, a soft echo of all the effort, emotion, and growth she had experienced. The silence that followed was gentle, a pause to honor the journey she had begun. Though no one was present in the café that night, she felt the presence of possibility and change, a quiet promise that her music would continue to reach others in ways she could never have imagined. As she left the café later, walking home under the quiet glow of streetlights, she carried with her a sense of purpose. She knew that the road ahead would not be without challenges, that performing for larger audiences and navigating recognition could be daunting. But she also knew that her gift was real, that it was hers to share, and that the music within her had the power to move hearts and inspire change. In the days that followed, she practiced diligently, each session more confident and expressive than the last. She experimented with new pieces, exploring emotions she had never put into sound before. Her fingers moved with a freedom and precision born of both passion and experience, and she discovered a joy in creation that went beyond personal satisfaction. The music became a bridge, connecting her inner world with the people around her, slowly transforming her life and the lives of those who heard her. Through it all, she remained humble and grounded. She never sought attention or praise, but she accepted recognition with quiet grace when it came. Her journey had begun with a challenge, but it was now guided by her love for music and her desire to share it honestly and sincerely. Each note, each melody, carried her story, and she realized that by embracing her hidden talent, she could create moments of beauty that would linger far beyond the walls of the small café where it all began. The next week brought new experiences and unexpected attention. The small café had never felt so alive. People came not only for coffee but to see the woman who had played a difficult piano piece so beautifully. Some came quietly, almost shyly, curious to see if the talent was real. Others came with expectation, wanting to witness the moment they had heard about through whispers and word of mouth. She felt the weight of their attention, a mixture of excitement and pressure that made her heart beat faster whenever she approached the piano. She tried to carry on with her routine, serving drinks and pastries, keeping her calm exterior. Yet, inside, she felt a storm of emotions. Some days, the thought of performing for more than a handful of people made her nervous. She had always been comfortable in private, where music was a world of her own creation, free from judgment. Now each performance felt like stepping into a spotlight she had never asked for but could not ignore. One afternoon, as she arranged a fresh batch of pastries on the counter, the man who had initially challenged her returned once more. He came with a calm smile and a folder under his arm. "I have an opportunity for you," he said quietly. "There is a local concert happening next month. They are looking for new talent to perform. I believe you could make a real impression. Would you consider participating?" She froze for a moment, the thought of a concert in front of a larger audience causing her stomach to twist with nerves. Her fingers instinctively brushed against the edge of the counter as she considered the offer. She wanted to say yes immediately, driven by a mix of curiosity and the desire to share her music. Yet fear held her back. She had never performed outside the comfort of the café. She worried about making mistakes, about being judged harshly, about losing the intimacy and freedom she cherished in her music. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "I will think about it," she said softly, her voice betraying both excitement and anxiety. The man smiled and nodded, leaving the decision in her hands but offering encouragement with his presence. He left the folder behind, filled with information about the concert, the repertoire expected, and suggestions for practice. That evening, she returned to the piano in the quiet of the café after closing hours. She opened the folder, reading through the list of pieces and the instructions. Many were challenging, complex works known for testing even experienced pianists. She felt the pressure building but also a spark of determination. This was a chance to step beyond the small world she had always known, to see how far her hidden talent could take her. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play, letting her fingers move over the notes, testing her skill, and adjusting her technique. As the week progressed, she practiced tirelessly, spending hours each evening exploring the pieces suggested for the concert. She discovered nuances in the music she had never noticed before, subtle expressions and emotions that deepened her connection to each piece. The piano became her confidant once more, a space where she could confront her fears, explore her abilities, and grow as a musician. With each practice session, her confidence increased, and the fear that had initially held her back began to loosen its grip. At the café, regular customers began noticing a subtle change in her demeanor. She moved with more poise, her hands carried a quiet confidence as she served drinks, and occasionally, she allowed her fingers to brush the piano keys, creating small melodies that hinted at the growth she was experiencing. The man who had supported her continued to visit, offering encouragement, advice, and a quiet presence that made the daunting prospect of a concert feel more attainable. One day, a group of music teachers visited the café, drawn by the stories of her talent. They watched discreetly as she served drinks and then asked politely if she might play something for them. Her heart raced as she approached the piano, aware of their professional eyes observing her every movement. She took a deep breath and began to play, letting the music speak for itself. The teachers were silent at first, then gradually leaned forward, impressed by the depth, control, and emotion she conveyed through the notes. By the end, they were nodding in approval, exchanging glances that conveyed their admiration. Encouraged by their reaction, she began to see a path opening before her. Perhaps this concert was not just a challenge, but an opportunity to step into a new chapter of her life. She realized that the fear she had felt all along was natural, but it did not define her. She was capable of more than she had ever allowed herself to believe, and the music within her had the power to reach others in ways she could not have imagined. As the days grew closer to the concert, she experienced moments of doubt and anxiety. Some evenings, she would sit at the piano and find herself unable to play a single note without trembling. Other times, she would perform flawlessly, each movement confident and precise, leaving her exhilarated and amazed at her own progress. She discovered that the challenge itself, the pressure, and the audience were shaping her, revealing strengths she had never fully recognized. She also learned to manage the balance between her daily work at the café and her musical practice. Each day required careful planning, but the effort was worthwhile. She felt herself growing not only as a musician but as a person, more self-assured, more aware of her own potential, and more willing to embrace opportunities that once would have seemed intimidating. One evening, after another long practice, she stepped outside for a walk, letting the cool night air calm her racing thoughts. She thought about her journey so far, from the quiet café performances to the growing attention, to the opportunity to play in a concert. She realized that each step, each note, had brought her closer to understanding her own capabilities. She felt a sense of quiet pride and anticipation, knowing that the upcoming performance would test her in ways she had never been tested before, but also provide a chance to share her gift with a larger world. In the following days, she continued to practice diligently, experimenting with new interpretations of each piece, exploring emotion, timing, and expression. She discovered subtle techniques, nuances that added depth to her playing, and slowly built a collection of pieces she could perform with confidence. Her connection with the piano deepened, becoming not just a tool for practice but a bridge between her inner world and the audience she would soon face. The café remained her sanctuary, a place where she could experiment, grow, and reflect. Regular patrons offered quiet support, some stopping to comment on the music, others simply listening in appreciation. Even the skeptical visitors who had come to see her initially began to show respect, recognizing that her talent was not a momentary fluke but a consistent display of skill and emotion. As the concert date approached, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew that this opportunity was significant, a turning point that could change the trajectory of her life. Yet she also understood that her journey was not about fame or recognition. It was about sharing her music honestly, with heart and dedication. Each practice session, each performance, was a step toward that goal, and she embraced it fully, aware of the challenges but ready to face them. On the day she was to perform at the concert, she arrived early, taking a moment to sit at the piano and breathe. She let her fingers brush the keys lightly, recalling the countless hours of practice and the journey that had brought her here. The audience would be larger, the expectations higher, but she felt prepared. She had discovered her own strength, her own voice, and the music she created had the power to reach others, to move them, and to tell her story in ways that words never could. As she stepped onto the stage, the lights casting a soft glow, she felt a calm resolve settle over her. This was not just a performance. It was a declaration of her hidden talent, a revelation of the skills and emotions she had nurtured in private for so long. She positioned her hands over the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play, letting the music flow naturally, guided by both skill and heart. The notes carried her story, her growth, and her courage to an audience that was about to witness the emergence of a hidden piano master. The night of the concert had arrived, and she felt a mix of excitement and nerves that she had never experienced before. The hall was larger than any space she had performed in, filled with people she had never met. The stage lights glowed softly, illuminating the grand piano that awaited her. Backstage, she could hear the low murmur of the audience settling, the shuffle of programs, and the faint sounds of other performers preparing. Every sound made her heart beat faster, yet beneath the nerves, there was a quiet determination. She had worked for this moment, and now it was her chance to show her true ability. She took a few deep breaths, recalling the hours she had spent practicing in her small apartment and at the café. She remembered the first time she had been forced to play a difficult piece, and how that challenge had opened a door she never knew existed. That memory gave her courage. She realized that her journey had been preparing her for this very moment, and she allowed herself to feel both the weight and the excitement of it. When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage with a steady but gentle pace. The audience fell silent as they watched her approach the piano. She paused briefly, letting her eyes sweep over the crowd. There were faces filled with curiosity, expectation, and some doubt. She ignored the thoughts that tried to creep in, reminding herself that her music was stronger than her fear. She sat down at the piano, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. The first notes were soft, tentative but confident. They carried the warmth and depth of someone who had poured years of emotion and practice into their music. As she continued, her fingers moved with fluid precision, dancing across the keys and creating melodies that seemed to tell a story without words. The audience leaned forward, captivated by the skill and emotion in every note. The quiet that had filled the hall was not emptiness, but a shared space where her music was the focus, where every listener was drawn into her world. She had chosen a particularly difficult piece for the performance, one that many experienced pianists would find challenging. It had complex passages, rapid changes, and demanding sections that tested both technique and expression. But she was ready. Her fingers moved instinctively, guided by muscle memory, training, and the deep connection she had always had with music. The challenges that once seemed impossible now flowed naturally, as if the piano itself guided her through them. As the piece progressed, her confidence grew. She was no longer just performing notes. She was telling a story, expressing emotion, and connecting with every listener in the room. The music carried her joy, her struggles, and her quiet strength, creating a tapestry of sound that left the audience in awe. Faces that had initially shown skepticism softened, replaced by expressions of admiration and wonder. Some whispered to their neighbors, unable to hide their amazement, while others sat quietly, fully absorbed in the experience. Midway through the performance, she allowed herself a small smile, realizing how far she had come. The nervousness that had accompanied her for weeks melted away, replaced by the pure joy of creating music and sharing it with others. Each note she played was infused with emotion, a reflection of the years she had spent learning, practicing, and understanding the language of the piano. She was no longer just a performer. She was a storyteller, a conduit for feelings that words could never fully capture. The final section of the piece approached, more intense and demanding than the rest. Her fingers moved faster, more confidently, executing intricate passages with precision and grace. The audience was silent, but the energy in the room was palpable. She felt their focus, their attention, and used it to fuel her performance. The notes flowed effortlessly, a combination of technical skill and heartfelt expression that left no room for doubt about her abilities. She felt a surge of triumph, knowing that she was not just playing for herself but reaching the hearts of everyone listening. When the last note rang out, she held her hands above the keys for a moment, savoring the silence and the lingering echo of the music. The audience remained still for a heartbeat, then erupted into applause. It was loud, genuine, and filled with awe. People stood, clapping, cheering, and some even whistling in appreciation. She felt a wave of relief and satisfaction wash over her. The journey she had begun in the quiet of her apartment and the small café had led to this moment, a moment where her hidden mastery was revealed in its fullest glory. She stood and took a modest bow, her smile calm and humble. Despite the applause, she did not feel the need to boast. The recognition was gratifying, yes, but the true reward was the ability to share her music and connect with others through it. The experience had shown her that her talent, once hidden and underestimated, had the power to captivate, inspire, and touch hearts. After the concert, she received words of praise and admiration from many people, including the man who had first challenged her. He offered sincere congratulations, telling her that her performance had exceeded all expectations and that she had a rare gift that deserved to be shared with the world. Music teachers, critics, and even casual listeners approached her, asking questions about her training and experiences. She answered politely, keeping her humility, but each compliment reinforced the realization that she had taken a step into a new chapter of her life. The night did not end with the applause. Later, she returned to her apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. She sat at a small keyboard she kept by the window, letting her fingers wander over the keys. The music flowed naturally, not for an audience, but for herself. She realized that while public recognition was rewarding, the true joy of music came from the ability to express herself, to tell stories through sound, and to explore the depths of emotion that words could never reach. The experience also changed the way she viewed her own potential. She had been underestimated, her talent hidden by circumstance and modesty, but now she saw that challenges and opportunities could reveal strengths she had never fully acknowledged. She began to plan for the future, thinking about new pieces to learn, potential performances, and ways to continue sharing her gift with others. She knew that there would be obstacles, moments of doubt, and pressures to face, but she felt ready to meet them with courage and determination. In the days that followed, the café remained a place of both work and inspiration. Regular patrons asked about the concert, some sharing stories of attending, others simply curious about her experiences. She listened politely, answering with modesty, but inside, she felt a growing sense of confidence and purpose. Her music had reached beyond the quiet corners of the café and into a world of possibility she had never imagined. She continued to practice daily, exploring new techniques, experimenting with expression, and refining her skills. Each session was a journey, a chance to deepen her understanding of music and herself. She discovered nuances in familiar pieces, uncovered emotions she had never expressed, and pushed the boundaries of her abilities. The piano became not just a tool, but a companion, guiding her through challenges and helping her discover the full extent of her hidden mastery. As the weeks passed, invitations to perform continued to arrive, some small and local, others larger and more prestigious. She considered each one carefully, balancing the desire to share her music with the need to maintain her passion and authenticity. She realized that fame or recognition was never her goal. The true reward was the ability to communicate through her music, to touch hearts, and to inspire others with the beauty she could create. Through it all, she remained grounded. She continued to work at the café, serve her regular customers, and maintain the simplicity of her life. Yet within her, a quiet transformation had occurred. The challenge that had initially forced her to play a difficult piece had unlocked a hidden talent, one that had now blossomed into mastery. She understood that this gift was hers to cultivate, to share responsibly, and to honor with dedication and love. The night of the concert remained vivid in her memory, a turning point that had revealed her abilities and the power of music to connect people. She knew that more challenges lay ahead, but she also knew that she was capable of meeting them. Her hidden talent, once unnoticed and underestimated, had now found its voice, and she was ready to continue the journey, exploring the endless possibilities that her music could offer. After the concert, her life began to change in subtle and unexpected ways. The applause and praise she had received were still fresh in her mind, but more than that, she felt a new sense of confidence that had been absent before. People in the café greeted her with admiration, some sharing stories of attending the performance, others simply expressing amazement that someone so quiet could hold such incredible talent. Every compliment was a reminder of the power of her music, and she carried it with humility and gratitude. The man who had first challenged her to play a difficult piece continued to offer guidance and encouragement. He shared stories of other performers he had known, gave advice on repertoire and technique, and sometimes simply listened as she spoke about her experiences. His presence was comforting, a reminder that her talent was recognized not just by the public, but by those who understood the depth of skill and dedication it required. She began receiving invitations to play at small events, local gatherings, and even charitable functions. Each opportunity brought a mix of excitement and nervousness. While she loved performing, she had always been cautious, wary of losing the intimacy and personal connection she felt when playing for herself or for a small, familiar audience. But with each invitation, she realized that sharing her music could bring joy to others in ways that were profoundly meaningful. One evening, after a particularly moving performance at a local community event, she was approached by a music teacher who had attended the concert. "Your talent is extraordinary," the teacher said, eyes wide with admiration. "I've watched many students over the years, and few have the skill, expression, and depth you possess. You should consider teaching others, sharing your gift not only through performance but through guidance." The suggestion surprised her. Teaching had never crossed her mind, yet she felt the possibility stirring inside her. She could help others discover music in a way she had, nurturing their skills and fostering a love for the art form. As weeks passed, her schedule became a careful balance between her work at the café, practice sessions, and performances. Each day required organization and focus, but she found satisfaction in the routine. Her hands moved with increasing precision, her interpretations of music deepened, and her ability to convey emotion through each note grew stronger. The piano had become not just an instrument, but an extension of herself, a medium through which she could communicate the unspoken stories within her heart. Word of her talent spread beyond her small town, reaching people who were curious to hear her play or see her perform. She received invitations to larger events, sometimes in neighboring cities, and while the thought was intimidating, she felt a growing determination to rise to each challenge. She reminded herself that her music was her own, that each note carried her personal expression and experience, and that she had the power to impact those who listened. One afternoon, while practicing a particularly complex piece, she felt the music moving through her in a new way. The notes flowed with both strength and delicacy, capturing emotions she hadn't expressed before. She realized that her skill was no longer hidden, that the challenges she had faced and the practice she had devoted herself to had forged a musician capable of more than she had ever imagined. Each performance now held a deeper significance, a chance not just to play, but to share a piece of herself with every listener. As her reputation grew, so did the expectations. Some people anticipated perfection, others were eager to witness her skill firsthand. The pressure was real, but she had learned to manage it, to channel her nerves into focus and expression rather than fear. She discovered that preparation, confidence, and the love of music were stronger than any anxiety. The challenges she had once feared became opportunities to grow, to push the boundaries of her abilities, and to explore the depths of her artistry. She also began to notice the impact her music had on others. After performances, people would approach her with stories of how her playing had touched them, comforted them, or inspired them. Some spoke of difficult times in their lives, and how the music had given them hope or calm. Others shared their own experiences with learning and performing, expressing gratitude for her example. Each story reinforced the importance of her gift, reminding her that music could transcend words and connect people in profound ways. Her days at the café became even more meaningful. She continued to serve customers with the same gentle attention as before, but now she carried an added sense of purpose. Occasionally, she would play quietly during slow hours, creating melodies that mingled with the aroma of coffee and pastries, bringing subtle joy to those present. Some patrons recognized the depth of her skill, while others simply enjoyed the music without fully realizing the extent of her talent. She found happiness in both scenarios, appreciating the balance between shared recognition and personal satisfaction. The man who had first challenged her remained a consistent presence, often suggesting new pieces or offering encouragement before performances. His guidance helped her navigate both technical aspects and the emotional journey of performing in public. While she had discovered her hidden talent on her own, his support and belief in her abilities reinforced the confidence she had developed through practice and experience. She also began to explore collaboration, playing alongside other musicians at certain events. Working with others brought new challenges, requiring communication, adaptability, and harmony. She discovered that the joy of music could be multiplied through collaboration, as each performance became a shared experience, blending individual talents into a richer whole. Her understanding of rhythm, timing, and emotional expression deepened through these interactions, adding further depth to her already exceptional skill. Despite her growing success, she remained humble and grounded. She knew that her journey had started with a challenge, a test that revealed her hidden abilities. She had faced fear, doubt, and skepticism, yet she had persevered, letting her talent speak for itself. Each performance, each practice session, each small step forward was a continuation of that journey, a reminder that dedication and passion could transform potential into mastery. As she reflected on her experiences, she felt a sense of gratitude. The challenges she had faced, the moments of doubt, and the initial underestimation by others had all contributed to her growth. She understood that talent alone was not enough. It required courage, perseverance, and a willingness to embrace opportunity when it arose. Her journey had shown her that even hidden abilities, when nurtured and expressed, could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Looking ahead, she envisioned a future where she could continue to share her music, inspire others, and explore new possibilities. She considered teaching, performing at larger venues, and perhaps even composing original pieces that reflected her unique voice. The path was not without uncertainty, but she felt ready to meet each challenge with the same quiet determination that had carried her this far. The journey that had begun in the quiet of her apartment and the small cafe had led to a life filled with purpose, connection, and expression. Her hidden talent, once underestimated and overlooked, had blossomed into mastery, allowing her to touch the lives of others and reveal the beauty within her own heart. Each performance, whether in a large hall or a quiet corner of the café, was a celebration of the gift she had discovered and the courage she had found to share it with the world. Through it all, she remained herself, gentle, humble, and devoted to her music. She understood that recognition and admiration were gratifying, but the true reward lay in the ability to create, to express, and to connect through her art. Her life had changed in remarkable ways, but at its core, it was still about the music, the joy of playing, the power of emotion, and the endless possibilities that each note could hold. And as she continued her journey, she knew that the best was yet to come, that her music would keep evolving, touching hearts, and revealing the depth of a hidden piano master who had finally found her voice. Months had passed since her first public performance, and her life had changed in ways she had never imagined. She had grown more confident, more skilled, and more aware of the power of her music. Invitations to perform continued to arrive, ranging from local events to larger venues in nearby cities. Each opportunity brought excitement and nerves, but she had learned to channel those feelings into focus and expression. Music had become both her passion and her purpose, guiding her through each day. She continued to work at the café, maintaining her humble routine. Serving drinks and pastries gave her a sense of normalcy and connection to her community. Yet, behind the quiet demeanor, a woman capable of extraordinary talent lived, one who had been tested and had risen above expectation. Patrons who had once seen her only as a gentle server now looked at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity, aware that there was much more to her than met the eye. In her apartment, she spent hours at the piano, exploring new pieces and refining old ones. She experimented with different techniques, emotions, and interpretations, pushing herself to expand the depth of her performances. She discovered that even after all her experiences, there was always more to learn, more to express. Music was not just about skill. It was about feeling, about connecting with the audience, and about revealing a part of herself in every note. One day, she received a message from a music school in a larger city. They had heard about her performances and wanted to offer her the chance to participate in a special masterclass. Working with experienced musicians and teachers, the invitation filled her with both excitement and anxiety. Traveling and performing in front of new audiences was challenging, but she knew that such opportunities were essential for growth. After careful thought, she accepted, eager to see what she could learn and achieve. The masterclass was an eye-opening experience. She met other talented musicians, some her age, others older and more experienced. They exchanged ideas, learned from each other, and performed together in ways that were both inspiring and humbling. The teachers offered guidance, highlighting strengths she hadn't noticed and suggesting improvements that helped her refine her technique. For the first time, she realized the vastness of the world of music, and she felt both a sense of awe and a determination to continue growing. During the final performance of the masterclass, she played a complex piece that required both technical mastery and emotional depth. As her fingers moved across the keys, she felt a calm focus, a flow that carried her through each note effortlessly. The audience, consisting of teachers, fellow students, and visitors, was captivated. Every nuance, every subtle shift in tone, conveyed the story she wanted to tell. When the last note faded, the room was silent for a moment, then erupted into applause. She felt a surge of pride and satisfaction, not from recognition alone, but from knowing she had performed at her best. Returning home, she reflected on how far she had come. From the small cafe where she had first been challenged, to this masterclass, and all the performances in between, she realized that each experience had contributed to her growth. Challenges that had once seemed daunting were now opportunities to learn, to improve, and to connect. She understood that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, courage, and the willingness to embrace opportunity had allowed her hidden mastery to flourish. Back at the cafe, life returned to its familiar rhythm, but she noticed the subtle ways in which her presence had changed. Patrons now watched her with quiet admiration, some taking the time to listen as she played, others engaging in conversation about music and performances. She found joy in these interactions, realizing that her gift could inspire and bring happiness to those around her. Even the small moments, a melody played while serving coffee, became meaningful expressions of her growth and confidence. She also began teaching a few young students in her neighborhood. She approached teaching with the same humility and care she had always shown in her music, guiding others, helping them discover their own potential, and sharing the techniques and insights she had gained became another way for her to express herself. She found fulfillment in watching her students grow, experiencing the same joy she had felt when her own talent was recognized and nurtured. Throughout this journey, she remained grounded and thoughtful. Fame or recognition had never been her goal. Her passion was music itself, and the ability to convey emotion and connect with others through her playing. She continued to explore new pieces, experiment with expression, and deepen her understanding of the piano. Each performance, whether in front of a large audience or a small gathering, was an opportunity to share her story and touch hearts. Her family and friends celebrated her achievements quietly but sincerely. They had always known her talent, even when others overlooked it, and now they saw her abilities recognized more broadly. Their support provided a foundation that allowed her to remain humble, focused, and committed to her craft. She felt grateful for the people who had believed in her, encouraged her, and given her space to grow. One evening, after a long day of teaching and practicing, she sat at the piano in her apartment, reflecting on the journey that had begun with a simple challenge. She closed her eyes and let her fingers move over the keys, creating a melody that carried both joy and contemplation. The music filled the room, a testament to her perseverance, skill, and passion. Each note was a reminder of how far she had come and of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Looking to the future, she envisioned more performances, continued teaching, and perhaps even composing her own pieces. She understood that the journey was ongoing, that growth and discovery were continuous processes. But she felt prepared, confident in her abilities, and inspired by the experiences that had shaped her. The hidden piano master, once underestimated and overlooked, had finally found her place in the world, sharing her gift with dedication, humility, and love. She realized that her story was not only about personal achievement, but about the power of music to transform, connect, and inspire. Every challenge she had faced, every moment of doubt had led her to this point. Her talent was no longer hidden. It was a living, breathing part of her, capable of touching hearts and leaving a lasting impact. And as she continued to play, teach, and explore, she knew that the journey of a hidden piano master was one without end, filled with discovery, expression, and the quiet, enduring magic of music.